The university is no longer just in crisis, it's actively collapsing. Skole IRL is a podcast dedicated to understanding the worlds people are building in its ruins already today. Each week, we explore the emerging experimental sphere of para-academia, with thinkers and builders doing the work to create spaces for communal study and knowledge-making alongside and outside the conventional university ecosystem. I'm your host, Sarah Begovac.
And I'm your co-host, Ira Allen. Together, we're learning each week how to salvage Skole from institutional hoarding and collapse alike.
Join us in reclaiming time and space for something like leisurely thinking outside instrumental ends. Skole in real life. Welcome everyone to Skole IRL. This week we are joined with Tuba İnal Çekiç, Cagla Diner, and Mohamad Moustafa Alabsi, or Safi, from University, a self-organization of scholars at risk who seek new strategies to sustain academic life and knowledge threatened by anti-democratic and authoritarian regimes. University was established for and by academics and students from Turkey, yet addresses itself to a public all over the world. Academics who have been purged from their institutions, forced to resign, who are legally and politically persecuted, and even imprisoned because of their opinion and research by anti-democratic regimes, and those who seek to speak up against these practices in solidarity. Their work centers on creating a digital sanctuary, fostering critical thinking, research, and education as an alternative response to oppression. In a world grappling with political oppression and the stifling of intellectual freedoms, their mission is threefold. Provide a secure haven for endangered scholars and students, cultivate knowledge in the face of adversity, and nurture a global community bound by a commitment to social justice. Tuba İnal Çekiç came to Germany in 2016 after working in academic institutions in Turkey. She holds a PhD in urban and regional planning from Yıldız Technical University and works at the intersection of urban sociology, spatial theory, and planning. Her research and publications focus on urban conflicts, migration, spatial justice, authoritarian urbanism, and democratic transformation. Currently based in Berlin, she is particularly interested in how power, inequality, and resistance shape urban space, and in linking academic research with urban practice and everyday experiences. She is a co-founder of University, where she contributes to developing collaborative formats of research, learning, and knowledge production. Cagla Diner came to Germany in 2018 as an Academy in Exile Fellow after working as a faculty member at Kadir Has University in Istanbul for 11 years. She holds a PhD in sociology from Johns Hopkins University and a bachelor's degree in economics from Boğaziçi University. Her research and publications focus on the relationship between economics, knowledge, and politics, women's organizations in Turkey, and policymaking on women's poverty. She currently lives in Germany and is concerned with the production and dissemination of knowledge in migration studies, as well as with independent and community-based forms of knowledge creation, engaging with University to foster more independent and collective approaches to knowledge production. Mohamad Moustafa Alabsi, or Safi, holds a PhD in political philosophy from the University of Grenoble-Alpes in France. His thesis focused on the relationship between regime and state in the contemporary Middle East and the notions of enemy, revolution, and civil war in political and legal theories, as well as in the Arab Spring lessons and realities. He was a postdoctoral fellow at Columbia Global Center, Amman. His personal academic project is about the creation of an Arabic encyclopedia of political philosophy, making in-depth knowledge of state theory literature available, especially for Arab students. His research areas are philosophy of law, forms of regimes and of dictatorship, the totalitarian state, and the one-party state. Safi believes in action and in initiative. That's why he's very excited to work with University. Over the last few years, Safi's been working on his project, the Syrian Library, which is a knowledge transfer project consisting in providing Arabic access database about Western studies of the Syrian conflict. Let's get it started here with University. Hi, Safi, Cagla, and Tuba. Thanks so much for joining us today. Let's just go ahead and jump right in. What is University? How did it come into being? And what conditions are making it both possible and necessary?
Maybe I can answer this question. I'm one of the founding members of the university, which is an organization, non-governmental organization, which is based in Berlin, Germany. So it's an organization that we founded in 2017 as a response to the academic pressure, political pressure that we had in Turkey as academics or peace academics, that we signed a petition that was trying to stop the violence against the Kurdish population in the Southeast Anatolia or Southeast Turkey. So there was a pressure, political pressure and persecution against all these academicians who signed the petition. We were around 1,000 people. So during that time, we were half, and some of us were displaced, and most of us were dismissed from our universities, and some of us were already exiled in Germany, and some of us were stuck in Turkey, whose passport was invalidated with a dismissal and with an emergency decree during that time. So it was a response to that crisis, an urgent crisis, that we thought we have to keep on working on a better and safer environment, that the borders do not play a role. Then we founded this organization in Berlin, and we built an infrastructure to do our courses and to reach our students online. So in a nutshell, I can say it's an alternative academic space for scholars who are excluded, dismissed, displaced, or in general who are at risk. Also, it's not a replacement of university, but a translational and online infrastructure for teaching, learning, and knowledge production, I would say. And it definitely exists out of, that's why we called it out of the traditional university system, both geographically and politically, and out of the system that we can reach each other without this passport not working.
What would you say are the main challenges to academic freedom, in your words, the space is responding to?
I think, first of all, it's the direct repression we had in Turkey. We were criminalized from the research. We had dismissals, we had travel bans, and some of us already have been arrested in that time and detained and imprisoned for that time for a month or for more than a month, some of us. So first of all, it was a response to, of course, academic freedom in that sense, and also freedom of speech, that people could keep on doing their work, research, and reaching to their students as well. And also, from one side, it was for the scholars at risk who wanted to reach their students and do research, keep on doing their research, what they are used to do. But on the other hand, during that time, many people have been dismissed from the universities, which also had a consequence on that in the university, the critical knowledge and the color of the university that was part of this critical knowledge has been gone and also has been banned. So it was a response that we want to bring in the critical knowledge to the university out of the system back again. So I think in that sense, it challenged academic freedom and challenged this dismissal as a response to provide academic freedom to those who have been banned from doing research.
I also would like maybe to say also that there is a growing number of conflicts, like the last 10, 15 years, 20 years. It's really huge. I've been into a group in the United States. It is the New University in Exile Consortium. And it was thanks to this group that I got to know of university, and I taught 2 courses with Off University in Germany. And at the beginning, they started, I think, with Turkish scholars who fled Turkey after the military coup, the failed military coup in Turkey. And then we had Afghanistan, then Ukraine, Syria already was there, and the Yemen and Sudan today, and so on. So conflicts are only becoming, taking much of space of the world map, and the institution, I think, are difficult, are not ready maybe to help all of these people. And at the same time, another problem that when a scholar leaves his country, it's also you have a lot of other personal or even problems related to the research market, the problem of language, the time you take to settle your papers, for example. Can you imagine any scholar, like, I don't know, from Syria, from anywhere in Kurdistan, he comes to Germany or to France, then he has no paper, he wants to make field work, so to get back to his country, it's impossible. So that facilitates maybe for locals, the host countries, you have, I don't know, a US passport, a French passport, you can just take your passport and go to the field. While if you are from this country and you are protected by your passport, while if you are an exiled scholar, you will have a lot of difficulty, if not an impossibility, to get back to your country to make like field work, for example. So all of this, that it makes a gap between the society of origin and exiled scholars. And so this is not an institutional, maybe, or informal obstacle that faces exiled scholars, for example, or their academic freedom, but it's practical dimension that is not so discussed, So this is also, there are a lot of problems that we cannot just imagine at the first moment we talk about obstacles to academic freedoms. But yeah, there are a lot of difficulties that are facing exiled scholars or academic freedom in general. And even I understood that in the United States, exiled scholars, people who sought refuge in the United States, now they cannot talk about the policies of the U.S. government because they are scared for their status. So you come to a place where you are supposed to have more freedom, but you have to censorship yourself in your host country. Yeah. So the range of problems is immense. And Tayla, maybe you want to say something.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Safi in the sense that, as Tuba explained, when Off University was established, there were a lot of academics who were fired from their jobs and who had ongoing cases in the Turkish judicial system because they were being accused for supporting terrorism, the academics that Tuba mentioned. And a lot of people ended up here in Germany. And then we started having other debate or lack thereof in Germany about academic freedom and the freedom of the students or the freedom of some of the university professors on the issue of Germany's response to what has been happening in Palestine. And it was actually, so speaking of academic freedom or freedom of speech, it was amazing for us, I think, those people who came from Turkey for lack of academic freedom, and then seeing that the censorship here is actually not better, could be even worse. At least we were 1,000, 2,000 people in Turkey who could get together on online platforms and talk about what's been happening in Turkey in terms of human rights violations and atrocities of the very young people and children in Southeast Turkey. But then we have experienced, all of us, that, Germany is actually not so much different than Turkey is after the October 7 event in the region. So I just wanted to make a note that, academic freedom, which we thought was a problem of the South or of the Middle East, is actually not a problem only of the South or the Middle East, but very much a problem here in Germany, in Europe, and as we have been seeing in the last year in the United States as well. I just wanted to add.
Yeah, maybe I can also add one note on what Cagla already said. There is a growing gap between the idea of academic freedom and the reality of scholars and the reality that scholars are living here. And because academic freedom is not only being able to do your research, it's also being able to work on the topic that you would like to work. So we also kind of focus on 3 different levels at both universities. For scholars at risk who cannot work anymore, for the knowledge at risk that are banned in several countries. For instance, gender studies, peace studies in Turkey, Kurdish studies in Turkey. So that's why we are generally focusing on these topics. And also the third dimension that we focusing is the students at risk. It's also part of academic freedom that you have to reach someone. Then those students that have been also dismissed for political reasons and also from countries that are at war.
It seems like listening to you all, there's a way in which the off university, and maybe I don't know how much you talk about this, has also in it this sort of often it's somehow off us to the side of a what had been supposed to be a space for academic freedom and free knowledge making, and there's an openness that you're somehow collectively making off to the side in that space between off and often. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about how, under essentially impossible conditions, you see the off university as a space for making community. What does it mean as people are navigating, exile, enjailment, the rest of the situations that prompt the necessity for there being the off university? What does it look like to build community in the ways that you work together across distance, space, navigating anonymity for at-risk or endangered scholars where necessary? What does community mean for the off university?
Community at off university is built on the shared experience and also shared practices. So first of all, there is the community of the organization, of university organization, that has been established in 2017. So the community has been expanded geographical wise, because it started with a core group mainly from Germany, but who has some roots in Turkey, and also from people from Turkey. But then we expanded the organization with different geographies and with different countries as well, because it has been also issued in several other countries, in Ukraine, in Russia. People have joined us in Germany, and so people joined us online. So the physical community here is part of the organization, but still we have members of the organization who are also part of the decision-making process. So it's quite a democratic process that we invite everybody to become a member at off university and to work with us and to decide with us, because our board meetings are also on a platform which is secure, but it's still open if you are registered, that it's still open that you can join our even board meeting to be part of the decision-making process. On the other hand, the community for the courses on our online platform is something else, that we also have someone who is giving lecture, but we don't call it lecture, but the moderator, let's say, because it's an interactive session generally. So it's not just an online course that will go and watch it, and it's an interactive and on time sessions that the lecturer and students and the participants, not students, but we call participants, join together. In that community, yes, you can be anonymous based on due to the security problem, because in many of the countries, it still can jeopardize your existence in that country, and joining course that is from a knowledge at risk or even from a scholar at risk. So you can even stay anonymous, but still it's a community that there's an interaction, and it's not like a normal course, introduction to sociology or something. It's a social science in niche areas, and generally very interactive and participatory courses. That's in the course, everything is decided also together with the lecturer and the participants as well. So it's like a growing community with the participants, with the lecturers, who can also stay anonymous without giving their full names. But generally, we are more focused on protecting the anonymity of the students, because anyway, the lecturer who is giving the lecture is already at risk, that we know. So it's part of establishing or building the group community sense at off university.
So maybe to talk about anonymity, I don't know whether we can evoke about the case of students also, whether they are part of this community or not. But the most important thing that I remember that a few years ago we had a course proposed for students from Belarusia, 2 students in Belarusia also, and it was about gender studies. And I think we had like hundreds of people who were attending also in Turkey. And the anonymity, it provided a safe space for students to feel safe and to feel free to participate or to engage in the courses. Maybe this point is, as Tuba said, is more important for students than for us. but also it's possible also for instructors. I don't remember a case where instructors were anonymous, but for students it's a very good advantage, as we can go everywhere in the world. We also proposed courses for students in Myanmar. We went really so far everywhere on the globe. So it's a very, very good point, and that our platform is well protected. And so the question here, that when the students want to subscribe to a course, they only communicate their IDs with us, with Off University, and not with the instructors nor with their fellows in the course. And this permits us to provide them with certificates once they accomplish the course.
Could you talk to us a little bit more about some of the practices, projects, or other collaborations Off University is involved in that feel like they maybe produce either new or alternative conditions for thinking, learning, or for academic freedom outside of traditional academic forms?
If I can begin with the point of funding, so I'm sure, it's clear that a lot of ideas and projects are there, but for everything we'll have a funding. So we are funded on our applications. So each time we have an idea, we have to find partners and we have to find funders too. So we have people who we prepare together the applications. I can give just an example project we are working on. It's about creating a digital library, an online digital library that summarize the research work on the Syrian conflict. And that I come from Syria, so I'm really specialized in Syrian conflict studies. So there are hundreds of articles about the Syrian conflict, many approaches and many perspectives and fields. There are till now more than 130 books, academic books on the Syrian conflict. So this is an idea that all of this knowledge is unavailable in Arabic for people who are in Syria and who are still in a kind of conflict, still have a lot of problem in Syria, even after the fall of Assad regime. But such a project necessitates partners on the ground and funders in Europe, in Germany, or the United States. So things like that. So such things take a lot of time. This is something we are trying to get funding for. This is just an idea, and this is the advantage also of the virtual world and platforms, and we can use internet to reach out to people and to make links possible between international scholars, Syrian scholars in exile, and people on the ground, local communities and local instructors and local universities. So this is a project. There is maybe one of our most important project is the Peace Project, which is in Kurdistan of Turkey. Maybe Tuba has more knowledge, or Shala, you can talk about it, because about the history, Tuba has more knowledge about our beginnings.
Okay, so since the beginning, we had some foundations here that in Germany that we started to collaborate. One of those was Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. So they funded us throughout the 7-8 years almost, with several projects that we applied for. Now, Critical Peace Network is part of, again, this Rosa Luxemburg funded project, which is in the which is in the Kurdistan region of Turkey. So it's building a network and organizing events around it. Other than this, we also have several other foundations and organizations here that funds our projects. We can also, since 3 or 4 years, I don't remember the exact date, but we started to be able to host scholars and also activists from different fields, which is art, culture, and activism, specifically practical activism, I mean. We started to hold fellows, and that is funded by Martin Rose Initiative and Elizabeth Zai Initiative in Germany. So they fund us for the fellows, then we provide some safe space for the fellows that come, and at least for a year or 15 months, they do their production and they do their arts and they do their work in a more safe environment. And it's also a time that we give for those fellows, first to be part of the community. They also support us in organizing, in writing projects. Some of them also give courses, online courses. Some do their research when they are here. So it's part of our collaboration, and with those funding, we can host fellows here in Berlin. Other than this, with several projects, for instance, now we have with Urban Studies Foundation, we have a course that is funded by the Urban Studies Foundation. It's a seminar course, Cities at War. Then we have several scholars who are teaching from their cities without being anywhere. So it's an online course. It's a seminar course with different names every week. So it's again another project that we had. But throughout this 8 years, we had several fundings and collaborations with mainly foundations in Germany, and some of them were in the US. And in the US, we have another collaborating partner that is the New University in Exile Consortium. So it's a consortium that also hosts fellows in the US. Then they can also give courses online, and we support them with the platform and with the dissemination of the courses, and also using our social media platforms to distribute the course material and everything. So that's another collaboration we had since 6 years, I think, with the New University in Exile. And I give the word to Charles.
Maybe I can say a few words about how OFF could challenge traditional ways of thinking about academic knowledge. I mean, as Tuba explained, OFF University emerged out of need for solidarity when the Turkish scholars were fired from their jobs, and some had to even leave the country. And I think this makes a difference when people establish together an organization and want to continue produce knowledge together, and when they cannot use their names or their LinkedIn pages and all these other web pages, when they are not connected with an institution like a formal institution, that creates actually a free space. So of course people have to suffer through certain personal losses maybe or hardships, but on the other hand, when people are free from bundling their work and their research and the knowledge they produce with their names or with their teams, and then try to work together and focus on the work itself, on the research itself, or on the whatever they are studying. I mean, if they are studying the conflict in southeastern Turkey, it is that knowledge, that issue, or if they are studying the problems in Syria, again, this is that knowledge, but it's then that issue is at the center. And I think this makes a difference. I mean, this creates a different environment, and I think this is what inspires many of the members of the OFF University, like Tuba, for example, or like Yulia, who have been working there voluntarily for 8 years. I think this creates a whole different incentive structure than what we know in academia. That's what I wanted to add.
It's really striking when you say that. Listening to all of you, there's this sense that often we treat teaching and research as though they're two of the different streams of our activity, but all three of you are kind of talking about the knowledge making endeavor and the schooling side of Scholé in this totally freely interwoven way that's really, really cool. So I wonder if you'd say a little bit more, and this is sort of our bête noire for this podcast, about the word Scholé in broad terms. So what does Scholé mean to you? What does it mean to be a scholar or to do scholarship, especially under conditions of impossibility that turn out to be maybe solidaristically or collaboratively superable? And how do you feel like OFF University holds space for people to be scholars and has held space as the organization has grown? And maybe if I could throw in one more additional question, just kind of let me know what you're thinking about any of these. How does a commitment to making a university without borders maybe both express and challenge some traditional ways of thinking about Scholé?
Yeah, I can begin. Yeah, so what's the meaning of scholarship? So I left Syria in 2007. in 2007, I was 24-year-old and to France, and I began my PhD in 2011, before the beginning of the Syrian uprising. And my topic was about the future of Syrian society, as the Syrian society was under the Ba'ath rule, and it was a one-party state, a totalitarian state. So my question was about the future of Syria. Then the
Oh no.
I think Safi lost connection.
As he was talking about the Torah, hard not to be a conspiracy theorist sometimes, but one suspects that this is just an ordinary grade connection loss. We'll ask him to pick right back up, and we may edit it to tie things together. But if either of you want to kind of jump in with thoughts about scholarship, schooling, how these things fit together for you and off university, that'd be awesome.
Maybe I can try to say a few words about this. I try not to be very abstract, but sometimes I fail. I think most of us who work in or around off university feel that this knowledge production is not an individual process. It cannot be an individual process. It cannot be something that is led by one or two individuals who are professors or who are very well educated. I mean, of course, education helps. I mean, we are not against that, and we are totally in love with education in a way. But especially when we produce social or political knowledge, we are actually taking everything from the field, right? We have to live with the people, we have to talk to the people, we have to learn from the people about which we are trying to produce some kind of a knowledge. And this is not fair, or this is not right when one person or five people are the knowledge producers, the academics and the scholars, and then the rest are the local people about whom the knowledge is being produced. So I think in like most people around off university have a problem with this setup, which is the setup of knowledge production at the universities today. So this sounds a little bit abstract and maybe very imaginative and very much idealistic, but I think most of us feel this, and that is a different understanding of scholarship, and that's a different understanding of university and knowledge, I think. So we have been also, I think, of university, not, maybe I cannot say we, but I think there have been initiatives within the of university which think about this problem and which think about collectivizing knowledge production. And yeah, that's what I want to say about scholarship and off. Sorry, Safi, kind of, I jumped in when you left, but maybe you can pick up from where you left.
Safi, you were telling us about starting your PhD essentially right around the Torah's beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So once I began thinking about this topic, about the future of Syria, and then the purpose of this is to help Syrian society, or to make sense of the future of this society. And after my PhD, I realized just that articles are published all in English, and so it is impossible to reach out to people. So this is about the transfer of knowledge problem. I think this is the core of should be the core of research, and it's not the case at all, given that all the knowledge is not available in Arabic. So this is, this to me, it's to be useful to society and not only for the researchers community. So this is to me how to be a researcher. But I don't fit the profile of your researcher if I am about the transfer of knowledge. So it's completely something different. It's about dissemination of knowledge, vulgarization, popularization, but not about research itself. So there is a difference between the definition of being a researcher and being somebody working or actively on the transfer of knowledge to societies of origin or people who are being studied.
Maybe I can also add from my experience with off university. So as a scholar, what does being a scholar mean to me? I'm an urban scholar, by the way. So in Turkey, I was at the same time an urban activist and doing urban studies research same time. So It's like knowledge and activism kind of feed each other in Turkey. But after coming to Germany, then you kind of lose your entitlements. Not only title, you don't feel entitled to do, for instance, urban activism here in Germany. So I think for me, especially as an urban scholar, activism is part of knowledge production because it's fed by the lived experience on the street, on our laboratory that is the city, that's the urban. So it's made it possible for me, of university made it possible for me that I started to do activism in academic freedom in another field. Then my field became at the same time not only academic urban activism or urban research, but also academic freedom research and activism on academic freedom. So it's like this scholarship that is established around of university, or we try to create space for scholars, kind of helped me to continue kind of or feel entitled to do something in another country or in another context as well. Immediately. Maybe I could be able to do that in 10 years, for instance, now, but it's helped me to do this immediately right after my arrival. So it was a structure for me, keep on doing in a different way, in a different context as I learned or as I used.
And I think Off University is a site of possibility for collective learning and thinking and relating with one another and thinking about and thinking through what scholarship or being a scholar is. And I'm curious what you all think. Well, how do you imagine, or how does Off University reimagine the future of learning and knowledge-making spaces beyond the university form? And are there other spaces you take inspiration from or hold as a cautionary tale?
Maybe I can only say one thing that I really might sound a bit ambitious, but I think we inspired many new or newly established organizations and many initiatives. Because imagine in 2017, it was very radical to give online courses. I'm not talking about MOOC courses, that is massive online courses, but an interactive online course. And we also started with Off University. So it was our launch event, an online conference. So it was really marginal and very radical in 2017. COVID just kind of made it more possible, more visible that online courses is now everywhere. Everybody organizes online conferences and people meet online and research online. So it was for COVID, it was really not possible. Then Off University kind of became an inspiration to many other communities. So just imagine we came here in 2017, 16, 17 as Turkish scholars, and we thought we were the first one to be the last one in Germany, but of course we were not. Then the Russian came because they were oppressed by Putin, that they were against the full invasion of Ukraine. Then Ukrainian scholars came. Then Palestinian scholars came. Then scholars from Syria was already here. So we inspired many different cohorts of scholars that they also started to organize the same. So we kind of, I wouldn't use the word consult, but we also work together how they can produce the same and reproduce really the same experience they have.
May I say something very short, just to add to or support what Tuba has said? I mean, it could be a tale, hoping that knowledge production or knowledge making spaces will be very different than the traditional hierarchical universities, which are bound with politics, bureaucracy, and corporations. But I think these tales are tales that keep us going, and I think we need to have these tales. I mean, this is actually something that can that gives us people like us. I think that gives something to us to hold on to as we struggle through making ends meet and getting used to a different country after many years of living elsewhere and all that. I think these tales are tales that we all have to hold on to and use maybe in our imagination of the future.
Yeah, and I think that maybe, I don't know whether there is a model that does this. I don't think we take inspiration from something that, because as I said at the beginning, we are also dependent on the opportunities of funding. So we also need to have the topic or something or an initiative, and then we'll have to develop on and to find funders, so on. But I think that academia and knowledge production of academia should go toward content creation and try to find its place in social media, because till now webinars, academic webinars, things like that, you find them on YouTube. It's all like bad quality of it's maybe boring, things like that. And if you look at experiences of content creators who are just trying to share stories, I don't know, about the Second World War, about the Persian Empire, about it works, things like that. They work too. They work very good, and it's the same problem of the last question we've been talking about what is the aim of being a scholar, what is scholarship. It's to communicate with society, and today with the tools that are available, and maybe with the consumption of content also by all generations, not only the young generation, I think that academia should take some inspiration from the success story of stupid content, let's say, and it can find its place on social media, rather than waiting that all generations and the humanity just become aware of the problem of the phone consumption and get back to books. I think it's very complicated. So yeah, I think academia should try to think about a new dimension, a new way to just try to occupy space there, and maybe liberate a part of scholars from the duty of publishing with peer review and all of this. It's very good, but there are people that don't have the occasion. For example, I can take my own case. I cannot go to the field of my expertise, which is Syria, because I don't have the papers to get back to my country. Maybe I don't have the funding to make one month. I'm not affiliated in this moment, but I can do something else. I can talk what is being written on Syria in English, in French, or with other people, maybe in Germany or Netherlands, and we can make this knowledge available to people who are in Syria and they know nothing about this knowledge. From 130 books written about this, published about the Syrian conflict, there are only 13 that are translated into Arabic. So it's really incredible. So yeah, I think the success story of content creation should inspire the research community. But yeah, I don't see any sign of this. Maybe with next few years we will try something like this. We'll need to find all the elements, the designers. I don't know, but yeah, this is something that any group like us should work on and should develop and know what try to make something of it. Yeah.
I think there's a greater sense of sharing stories and sharing thought processes and sharing thinking around thinking and what that is and who has access to it, and or who is in these conversations that needs to be shared both in content creation space and academic spaces. I'm curious right now for our listeners and fellow thinkers listening, who are some thinkers or scholars, either older or contemporary or both, you think our listeners should be reading or engaging with in digital content form right now? And how does your collaborative work in Off University relate to and grow out of your own scholarship or experiences of scholarship or scole in communities across time?
Well, mine is quite short, actually. I tried to do a little bit homework, and there was a book I read when I first came here to Germany about 5-7 years ago. It's called University in Ruin, and it's written by someone who is not alive anymore, Bill Redding, written in 1997. I think it's a very good start to think about the university, where it has come from, and then where it is headed, and then once one reads it, one can actually think about where it should be heading instead of where it is headed. So that would be a recommendation. And then another one is a recent one, 2017, edited by Alain Badiou. I don't know how to pronounce it very well. I'm sure Safi knows better. And it's called What is Education? Edinburgh University Press. So it's again questioning what we understand from education and how do the universities fare with this in this age and date. I think these are good points to start discussions and maybe think about these tales that we want to cultivate more.
Yeah, I can also add one more name who was our fellow 2 years back, and he was working on rethinking university, the topic academic freedom within the topic of academic freedom. And he wrote an article, Rethinking the University, and it was published on our platform. So our listeners can check our platform and reach to our platform also reading other knowledge produced by our scholars at risk on our pop-up platform.
Love that.
Me, actually, I've not been reading specific authors or scholars. I've been all about all production or knowledge that have been produced on the Syrian conflict. So I've been on media communication studies about social media, and I've been on sociology of violence. I've been on refugee studies. I've been on minorities. Been on many things. So I'm not going to recommend really purely academic books. I will recommend things that I find really able to make the link between the world of literature, the world of comics, and the conflict studies, for example. One of the books, the original books I read, it is about the Syrian conflict. It's entitled "Fixing Stories: Local News Makings in International Media and Local News Making in Syria and Turkey." And it talks about the fixers. So I don't know whether you ever heard about fixers. Fixers, it's an ephemeral job, because you get born somewhere and you never hear about the job of fixer. But once you have a civil war in your country, or a conflict or a disaster, then with some with some hazards, you become a fixer. So you are the key to stories for reporters from like the BBC, or I don't know, from foreign media. And and it's very important about the shaping or designing of narrative, and the process with which like anything can become a story, and many other things cannot become events or stories that covered by media. So I like this book because it has very original approach to the topic of narrative and the event and the news making in general, and also the profile of the fixer. Yeah, you never. He began the book by saying that you never, once you are a fixer, you say to yourself, I never heard before of this job when I was young, or another book. It's literature. It's Kurt Vonnegut. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. Slaughterhouse 5, for example. I only read this one, but I think I will read all the writings of Kurt Vonnegut. He was captured. He was a soldier in the U.S. Army, and he was captured by Germans at the end of the war. He was stuck, and the soldiers who captured him were like 17 years old, because in Germany there were no conscripted anymore. They were so young. I really liked, and I think that I really understood what he was talking about. I'm not sure. I didn't read about him, but I read the novel. And other people who read the novel, but they come from another context of conflict, they didn't see the same thing. I just go very quickly to talk. My father, he came from Syria, from a besieged town in Aleppo. There was no electricity, no food, nothing, and he could come to France. And we went on a road for 8 hours here in France. It was the first days of his arriving in France. And at a stop, he was shocked, and I saw his eyes. He was really shocked that he was saying, it's normal, man. People are normal. Things are normal. He didn't understand that kids are eating sandwiches, no checkpoints for 4 hours of road. And I thought about, and then a few months later, I read Kurt Vonnegut, and he was about kind of schizophrenia, about the normal life after the war, his normal life after the war, and the post-traumatic disorders that came to him. And it was kind of schizophrenia, but this contradiction between two temporalities that would say that temporality of war is completely of another nature. Time is not the same, space is not the same, memory is not the same. So I recommend Kurt Vonnegut to try to find some some key to understand how people maybe live the temporality of war. I think it's very, very interesting. I also recommend Joe Sacco, his comics about Gaza, about Palestine, about fixers, also about war in Yugoslavia. I really appreciate him because I discovered it's recent. It's quite recent that I discovered Joe Sacco, the comics of Joe Sacco, and maybe I should stop. No. Yeah, I can stop. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
No, this is great. Yeah, say,
Yeah,
please.
being Jewish after the destruction of Gaza, I really like this approach because in Syria, after the fall of Assad, now the victims, the Sunni, not the Sunni, but the government that came on with the that is governing on the name of the Sunnis. They committed 2 massacres against the Alawites, accused of supporting Assad. Not all of them, but yeah, they were accused of supporting Assad and the Druze. And I really like people who belong to the victim and they say, no, I don't want to stay in this comfortable zone, and I want to go beyond to the human status of all of us, to the human equality between all of us. And even my group, who was a victim one day, they don't have the right to confiscate the memory of the victim and to commit other crimes. So I really like this approach that a Jewish author wrote a book about, and also Annette Viviorka, The Era of the Witness. She's survival of the Shoah also, and she wrote about the commercialization of the memory of the Americanization of the memory of the Shoah in the United States by Steven Spielberg, all of this. So I really like this approach. And yeah, that may be enough.
Well, that actually gives way to our last question, which leaves still more room for other texts, other forms of content, any other mode of Scole. But really, what have we not asked you about that if we were better attuned to what you do, that if we understood more richly or deeply what Off University is about or what your own engagements with it are about, we might have asked? What are we missing here? What did we not get to?
Maybe I can say you already asked, but maybe we didn't mention yet. For our listeners, we could also add that, or we should also add that at Off University, reaching to this critical knowledge led by or taught by scholars at risk is free of charge. So we also believe that students have to reach this knowledge without paying any tuition fees and anything. This is one of the principles that we wanted to also mention, but maybe we forgot in the beginning, but this Off University question involved that. And the second thing, this is what we did with Off University. It's like hijacking the system. And then we entered the university from the backyard, not front door, because they really dismissed us, or let's say kicked us out of the university. Then we entered from the backyard, that the courses that we taught at Off University platform is accredited by the traditional normal universities in Germany. So it's kind of a really ironic and at the same time really very strategic move that the credits, the courses that are taught at Off University is also accredited. It doesn't mean much maybe for the US, but in the European continent, it's called ECTS, that people can carry this ECTS credit to any university. That's even you're not a university member, or a student of a university, but you get the course then when you start your education as a student at risk or who came from the war zone and started to learn the language. You can save your credit, and then when you enter a university, you can also count that yes credits for your university. So this is something I would also like to emphasize, that it is not just an organization, but we do is really hijacking the system. I'm quite proud of this.
Yeah.
As it sounds.
Shaila, Safi?
I think we touched everything that I had in mind to talk about, but I could also ask the same question to you. I mean, do you think there is any point that we didn't answer satisfactorily because your questions were quite dense and difficult? I told Tuba and Safi, oh my God, how are we going to answer these questions? And without Tuba, I'm not even sure we would have made it. So maybe there is a point that you would like to emphasize as the owners of this podcast, and maybe we can go on from there. I mean, for me, I think we touched the points that we wanted to talk about.
I was just going to say I can't speak for Sarah, so she may jump in and completely disagree with me. But my experience has been your all's answers are tremendously illuminating. We're not, we're really our thing we're trying to do is understand what it is that people who are making space for Scole in the world where there isn't space are up to, because we need that. I thought a couple times as you all were talking about Yassin Saleh's article, Syria is not globalizing, it is the globe that is Syrianizing, Le Monde, from maybe 2010 or so, 2012, somewhere in there. And I think like there's a lot of ways in which what you're doing, what you've been making with Off University is absolutely not just inspirational or exciting, but also desperately necessary, much more so than I think a lot of people in more comfortable currently global North experiences realize. So thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Tuba, Shala, and Safi for joining us this week, and for your work to make an alternative academic space for scholars who are excluded, dismissed, displaced, or in general who are at risk. I really appreciated that Tuba mentioned the growing gap between the idea of academic freedom and the reality of scholars. And as one way to bridge that gap, Shala mentioned the power of tales to share the reality of scholars, and how these tales can keep us going and give us not only something to hold on to, but can also help in our imagination of the future. As Shala said, knowledge production is not an individual process, and there are ways of collectivizing knowledge production that are actually rooted in lived experience and struggle. I think one of our hopes here on the pod is to share the tales of how people are collectivizing to produce knowledge outside traditional universities. It brings us to the question we reflected on with Safi, which is, what is the aim of scholarship? And as Safi said, it is to communicate with society and to think about new dimensions of that communication. He points out the tales of content creators who are also making space for knowledge production. I think it's important to keep asking these questions, especially as threats to academic freedom are increasing all over the world, and to continue making space for us to ask these questions together. Huge thank you once again to the team at Off University for all that you do to sustain academic life in the face of oppression. Tune in next week when we are joined with Mason Herson Horvath from the Institute of Social Ecology, an independent institution of higher education dedicated to the study of social ecology, an interdisciplinary field drawing on philosophy, political and social theory, anthropology, history, economics, the natural sciences, and feminism. We talk about their commitment to social ecology, political imagination, and new modes of learning and relating with each other and the natural world, even amid institutional and ecological crises, and how this creates new possibilities for Scole in real life. Until then, for myself and Ira, thank you for listening.
Watching as the vortex spins below, you throw an insult to the volcano. Oh, my lord, is nothing sacred anymore. No.
Thank you to Devin Church for making music available from his album All That Solid Melts into Air. For a link to Devin Church's music and other key resources on today's episode, check out our show notes.